This is a TalkStation original podcast.
We've got a story now about Tucker Carlson, comes from the Christian Post. Jim, would you share that with us?
Absolutely, and this is written by John Brown, and the article says, political commentator Tucker Carlson has prompted renewed scorn after providing more details about a supernatural attack he alleges happened to him in his bed in February 2023, months before Fox News fired him. During an extensive interview last Wednesday with former Fox News host Megyn Kelly, Carlson suggested the attack he first went public with last year was in response to a positive supernatural experience he had had the day before, during which he experienced love towards someone he hated. Carlson says, "Culturally, I'm not just from a world where people are attacked by demons." He goes on to say, "I'm not embarrassed at all, and I don't care if I'm mocked. I don't get anything out of making this up, and I'm not making it up." Carlson told Kelly that the day before he was attacked, he had been talking with his brother about someone he despised, when he found himself overcome with empathy for the person he hated. He said both he and his brother were taken aback by his sudden knowledge of the person's intention. Carlson says, quote, "And I felt true empathy for this person I truly hate. I was like, the craziest thing that's ever happened to me. I have no idea where it came from." He claimed the ability to feel for someone he hated, an experience he described as, quote, "profound and beautiful and unexpected, did not come naturally to him and was obviously from God, but that it was, quote, twinned with an evil experience that came that night." Carlson confirmed to the Christian Post on Halloween last year that he believes he was, quote, "physically mauled by an unforeseen force when he was sleeping on February the 20th, 2023. Ephesians 6 is real, Carlson told the Christian Post, and he says that the New Testament teaches that mankind is engaged in warfare, quote, "against the forces of evil in the heavenly places." Speaking with Kelly, Carlson said he awoke that night struggling to breathe and found his sheets were covered in his own blood. He says, "I couldn't breathe, so I get up. I stand in the doorway of our bedroom and I'm like, wow, I'm dying." He goes on to say he had this horrible pain underneath his arms, like on the side of his chest, claw marks on both sides, on the right and the left side of my ribs, and they were bleeding. Carlson went on to explain that the experience pushed him to read the Bible, revealed to him the nature of spiritual goodness, and completely changed his view of the world. He goes on to talk about several of the other feelings that he had, and also in this article it talks about how some people really have a backlash towards Carlson and some of the views. Christian author and filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza has been especially outspoken against Carlson in recent weeks, accusing him of being anti-Semitic, whose motivation, quote, has to be connected to the dragon, the devil himself. He has also suggested that if Carlson's demonic attack was real, it could have been, quote, "a portal that was open for some sort of demon to enter into him." On Saturday, D'Souza posted an AI image of Carlson being clawed by a demon in response to a clip in which Carlson questioned why politicians he claimed have not historically shown much interest in Christian persecution in countries such as Ukraine and Armenia suddenly seem the interest in Nigeria. So, Brother Carl, I know that we are surrounded by the devil and his demons around us every day.
So my first question that I wrote down here for you is, do you believe in demonic attacks?
I would say yes, because the fact that the devil, especially for those who are in the church, spiritual warfare is huge. And I don't think we do a good job in the church of talking about it enough. We'll talk about it as temptation or something, or making a mistake or doing something wrong. And we don't necessarily put the credence in the devil and his minions doing the things they're doing. Because it's easier for us to say, well, the devil made me do it, so I did something bad. But I think the devil is constantly, and especially for as clergy, I've heard so recently so many different stories of clergy who have fallen from grace, And I think the devil is attacking because how else to scatter the church than to take away the shepherd?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I would say we are being attacked every day.
Sure. In the membership vows for the United Methodist Church, when somebody wants to join the church, we ask them this question: do you reject the spiritual forces of wickedness, reject the evil powers of this world, and repent of your sin? So in asking them that, we're saying, do you acknowledge that there are forces in this world that are trying to draw you away from God? Mm-hmm. God is filled with grace that is always drawing us towards Him, and there are other forces in the world working to pull us in the opposite direction. We ask people, do you believe this? And they say we do. And then we ask them, and this is the beautiful part, do you accept the freedom and power that God gives you to resist these forces? Mm-hmm. And we talk about the forces being manifest in things like evil, injustice, oppression. Those are all works of the forces of evil at work in the world. They draw us to want to focus more on ourselves, our own needs, our own wants, and to not think about those who are hungry, those who are without a home, those who are without a voice. Okay, that's all, for me, evidence of evil at work in the world. Mm-hmm. I have, since I went in the ministry, I have on 3 separate occasions been involved with having to go into a building and pray a demonic spirit out of that building. Do I want to call that an exorcism? No, because that brings to mind Linda Blair movies, right?
Right.
Right. And what we went through on those occasions was not like that. But yet we went into these spaces and we prayed and we anointed doorways with oil and we prayed blessings in every room. And in all 3 occasions, you could sense that there was something there that was not good, something that needed to leave. And on at least one of those occasions, and this was actually our home when I served at another church, we had an evil spirit that was living in the home with us and was trying to drive us out. And we had another pastor came over, and we went through and prayed through the whole house. And we didn't have pictures falling off the walls or dressers moving across the room, none of that. But you could sense something was very wrong. And then suddenly it all went away. Mm-hmm. And we knew that the house was now free of whatever this demon was that was in there. So I very much believe in these things. And the devil is not going to send his minions after you unless you are moving towards God, because you don't pose any threat to him. That's what I believe. If a church is doing really well and growing, that's when the devil's going to show up and start causing problems. If your church is just being fat and happy and lazy and not growing and kind of more concerned with sustaining yourselves than doing ministry, the demons are going to leave you alone. Yeah.
Well, we had when I was a student pastor on our what we call in the Lutheran Church our vicarage, it was a dual parish. So I worked the city church, but then also worked the university church, and the university church on Good Friday, right next door is a frat house. And here during the middle of the Good Friday somber service, you have all these frat guys yelling, screaming, and hooping it up. And I can remember my supervisor and pastor telling me, he says, the devil already won next door. He fought harder to keep us, to stay focused in this service. And I had the privilege one time of someone asked me, they did have pictures falling off the walls. And they asked if I would come and do a house blessing. And so I said, sure. And so we went through the rite that we have for blessing of the house. And like you said, you could feel a different presence. You walked in and there was just something that kind of like tingled the back of your neck. And when the whole thing was done, there was peace. And a few months afterward, I asked the person, I said, so you still got pictures flying off the wall? They're like, no. They said it is so nice in our house now.
Well, prior to the night that we prayed the thing out of the house, we did have physical things occurred in the house. But that night, as we were doing the praying, it didn't look like Hollywood with, us screaming and the wind roaring through. But at the beginning of that evening, I'll never forget, the other pastor said, now make sure you leave the back door open. And I said, why? He said, so the demon has somewhere to leave. He's got to find a way out of here. And I said, well, he can just go through walls. And he said, where'd you hear that? That's Hollywood, son. And at the end of the evening, when all of a sudden things felt chaotic.
Yeah.
Okay, it was so much uncertainty and unpleasantness and chaos in the room. And then it all calmed down. And my friend said, go check the back door. And I went, and it was closed.
Wow.
Yeah. So I very much believe in this stuff. So could something like this have happened to Tucker Carlson? Sure, it could happen to anybody. I wasn't there, so I don't know, all the details about what happened. Then my next question would be, how will this impact his life moving forward? Because that's what's going to matter.
And I think it's sad when people try to use a religious experience against someone, like creating memes and AI generated stuff. But that's the fallen world we live in, and I think that's part of the battle that the devil puts around us.